Hey, you guys want to see something real quick? Hold up. Hold up 1 second. How are you cool, crazy cats and kittens doing out there tonight? Let me get the right screen here. Let me get the right screen. Look at what your boy Sea-Dog did here. Now, I just want you to look at the room. I'm not going to say anything. I just want you to look at the room. And look what our boy Sea-Dog did.
Yeah! Let's go Sea-Dog!
This year's a tale for all the fellas. Had to do what those ladies tell us.
Yeah!
Play hard, can't see, nails it, kill it. Okay, Smarty, go to a party. Go to the dance, and to a body. Pick up the money, listen to the picture. Fuck it down on the wall like you a point that. That's the fun, connect that, who starts to get that over. You come on, start to dance, and then he hates so much, you just lift your hand. A girl starts walking, guy starts talking. Sits down next to you and starts walking. Says you want to dance like the groove. Come on, fast, so it is possible.
He tearing the room down, ain't he?
Jokes so they can see me. Some funny jokes just to get some plays, and you're trying to make a move and she says no way. Girls are thinking, goodness thinking. They want a man who brings home the bacon. Got no money and you got no car, then you got no woman. And there you are. Some girls are sadistic, I'm realistic. I got a man, they come out of domestic. Still out on the beach, trying to get to a cancer. I wonder what money can do that man. On the beach, you're stolen, real high rolling. Everything you got is yours, you're not stolen. Look around, I'm just with something to prove. So don't just stand there, bust the
Yeah, let's just pause it right there for a second. What are the odds he hurt himself grabbing his own leg there? I think they're pretty high.
Your best friend, Harry, has a brother Larry. In 5 days from now, it's gonna vary. Something you can look at that if you can. Within the ceremony, you'll be the best friend. You say, Nito, check your libido. Right up to the church in the Utah still. The crowd walks down just to stop the wedding. And there's one more girl you want to get it. When you start thinking, then you start waiting. Around it looks a big situation. Niggas got a cute so she reached back. They ain't feeling really good. And the girl's cat. It's nothing to pump and face is pumping. Look at the girl and her arms are pumping. Especially when I'm down to the family room. Now you know what it is, D-Box from us. You want it. You got it. You want it. Baby, you got it. You want it. You got it. You want it. Baby, you got it.
Let's go!
Your boy C-Dog brought in second in that environment. I just want you to know, I still got my sunglasses on. I'm still in cruising mode tonight. Appreciate the $2 from Zach Jones. Yo, what up? React to the next presser, sir. We're going to do that. We're going to talk Georgia Tech for sure. But we got to talk Slob Olympics. If you didn't know, all right, this is your first time hearing about this. Once a year, a group of completely degenerate individuals here on YouTube, and it's open to anyone. You guys can come next year. If you really want to pack that thing out for the A and put on for your city, I don't know where it's going to be next year. There's talks that it's going to be in Miami, which would be great if we brought a bunch of Tech fans to the Slob Olympics 2026 in Miami, a city and a team that we have owned and will own time immemorial. It might be somewhere different, but once a year we get together, we have a good time. Me, Uncle Lou, C-Dog, Pigskin Pete, Carolina Jackpot was there this year, and C-Dog and I got to scratch offs with Carolina Jackpot. It was great. Traveling Fools, if you see Slim Shady Canes in the chat, he was there. Nate the Great, who you see in the chat, he was there. It's a great time, and it's probably as embarrassing as it is to admit, once a year, we all do something slightly athletic. And we generally pay a dear price for that. Now, this year, it wasn't individual events. We did a team event. And might I say, Pete drafted the absolute dream team. When you stack your team with Tech men, that's the result you're going to get. It weren't even close. So me, Pigskin Pete, Nate the Great, who you see in the chat, still trying to eat your crow Vic, talking his trash to VicTube, who's also in the chat tonight. And I'm trying to think who else. A guy that I got to meet for the first time named Tooch. And it's kind of fitting, the minute that I learn our own DC's name, Santucci, not Stan Tucci, he leaves. And then I meet a guy, Tooch, I don't know what the full variant of it is. Very nice guy. And who ended up walking it off for us. There's a spelling bee, and my God, can you imagine, the kind of guys we are trying to spell words? It's a total disaster, and it was a total disaster this year. But let's go through the chat here. Coffee Killer says, evening, sir. Graham Boyd. Both members of the channel says, evening, Wreck. Anthony Perez. Let's go. Nate the Great says, hashtag Team Pete, #1, representing for the A. John Burns says, Haynes King at Georgia Tech for Heisman. It could happen. It could happen. Haynes King is going to be a hot commodity. He's got one more year left. It's going to depend on how healthy he can stay this season. There's one thing you can say about that guy. He's a ball player. He's a winner. He finds a way, right? Proud to have him on my team. Rock and Rant, Miami Man. If you don't remember, Rock and Rant came on here to break down some of this conference realignment. Because if you know your boy Wreck, I'm not an expert in all this stuff. I don't have time to keep up with every permutation, every legal document, every rumor that someone's grandmother's carpet cleaner told her. I can't keep up with all that. Rock and Rant, he's just smarter than me, probably. He keeps up with it. He was on the show when we broke that down. Love my boy Rock and Rant says, cruising on a Monday afternoon. Well, I'm back now. We got back in this morning, which was rough because we were at the casino until like 2 in the morning last night. We'll talk about that in a second. Michael Butler says, go Jackets, to hell with Georgia. Stan Garner says, brought that hardware back to the A. That's correct. That is correct. Barry Draper, to hell with Georgia. Love to hear it. John Burns says, Jackets over the Buffaloes by 17. Now, we're going to talk about that tonight, too. We're going to talk about the Slobs. We're going to talk about Georgia Tech. All right? I know you guys want to hear about it. And, hell, I want to talk about I want to give you what you want. If you didn't know, I'm the people's YouTuber. This is the people's elbow. This is the people's finger. And this is the people's mouthpiece. But that game has been moved to Friday now. Was originally opening game, Georgia Tech, Colorado, was a Saturday. It's been moved to Friday night, and there is a line on that game. Early line, Georgia Tech on the road in Buffalo. Friday night is 3.5 in Tech's favor. So Tech minus 3.5. Let's keep going through the chat. I read the super chat. Appreciate the super chat from Rambling On with Zach Jones. Stan Garner brings up an interesting statement, question. Sea-Dog raps a lot like the Buzzsaw. Well, if we get Sea-Dog back on the show soon, we're going to have to ask him about that. Is this a Clark Kent situation? What is going on? Fun was had by all. Certainly was. Certainly was. Rec did sit at the blackjack table with Uncle Lou. So we'll talk about that briefly as well. How did Mrs. Sea-Dog fight off all those women after that? It weren't easy. It weren't easy. You know, that is the burden and the cross that we bear as the beautiful people, the talented people. You know, most people are talented at one, maybe two things. People like Sea-Dog, people like me, we're the whole package. I barely got anything done, right? Fighting off the women. The Mindfish says, I respect Sea-Dog repping the Georgia Tech hat on the hat and shirt for the whole thing too. I didn't do it for the whole thing, and I don't think he did either, but I will tell you this. There were a lot of people that shouted out Georgia Tech on the cruise ship. And I'll tell you this too. We went to a comedy show, which I wasn't expecting to be as raunchy on a cruise ship as it was now. Carnival is kind of a more budget cruise line. So I really shouldn't have expected different than that. But it got, there's two young fellas sitting in the front row of the comedy show on the cruise. And somehow this guy had sussed out that these two guys were virgins, right? And that became a whole thing I can't go into on my own channel, right? But their parents were sitting in the comedy show with them talking about sexual acts, right? And I'm not, hand to God, I'm not making this up. I see one of those guys claim to be virgins at the buffet later. I want you to type in the chat what team's apparel you think they were supporting. We'll see who's right while we continue to go through the chat. Good to see you in here. VicTube Productions says, good evening. Ballard Sports Media says, great to finally meet you. Great to meet you too. We actually watched your video to open up the show. Couldn't think of a better way to open up the show than with Sea-Dog karaoke night on a cruise ship, dancing, breaking down, bust a move. We've never opened a show that hot before. Not on this channel. Joe the Pilot says, who brought home gold? That would be Team Pete, also known as Team Stacked with Tech Men. Did Georgia Tech represent? Por supuesto. Of course they did. Still trying to eat. Yep. Nate the Great, Sir UGA. Low down, get down. I hate tech, but I do like rec. I'll take it. Batting 500 gets you in the Hall of Fame in baseball. And I would think in most sports. Well, not if you're winning at 500. Not if you're winning at 500. Hell, Florida State would love to be winning at 500 right now, wouldn't they? Nate, you're just jealous because Lou picked me over you. How'd that work out for you, though? but how did that work out for you? Nate's a winner, is what it is. That comedy show was hilarious. Slim Shady Kane's in the house, one of the slob crew. I guess we'll call them the slob cruisers. The slob cruisers. Always nice to see Slim Shady Kane's. We always get in philosophical debates. Sat at the casino for a good bit, conversed last night. Look, I guess I'll go with what the other guy said. I'm not a fan of Miami. I'm a fan of Slim, though. I'm a fan of Slim. We talk probably, once a week? Catching up. How the kids, the wife. Has C-Dog got a pair of pants yet? Guys, if you didn't know, I didn't even know this. C-Dog does not own a pair of pants. Doesn't own one. Now, there's a captain's dinner on the cruise, which you have to dress up for. Now, it was the wrong night. We thought it was a night it wasn't. But we're trying to tell C-Dog, like, hey, you can't wear shorts with paint stains to the captain's dinner. This is a place of learned scholars we're going to. Served by multiple Indonesians, right? And then it comes out that C-Dog doesn't own a single pair of pants. Not a single pair. So we, like at church, basically take an offering up. We take up an offering to try and get C-Dog some pants. We were able to pony up like about the number of people that are watching right now, about $40, $45. But that's not enough to buy pants on a cruise ship. So, to my knowledge, he is still pantsless. Still pantsless. What's going on, Harry Legs? Is good Monday, Rick. Coffee Killer is the winner. The guy that was a self-admitted virgin from the comedy show was supporting Florida State gear. Can't make it up. Cannot make it up. Nate did tear down the dance floor. Motivated, dedicated in the house says, what up, D? What up, Doe? What up, Doe? Rec, will North Carolina win the ACC? Mainly, this is from Todd Spitz, because Bill will video teams' practices. Well, that is a question of, can Bill Belichick overcome what North Carolina doesn't have, which is any sort of winning tradition whatsoever. You can say what you want about Georgia Tech, right? And there's a lot of people with a lot to say about Georgia Tech. It ain't been since 1980 since we won a national title, though. Or not a national title, an ACC title. Hell, we've won a national title more recently than 1980, let alone an ACC title, right? I don't think, I mean, I've given my opinion on that. I think that, I think Bill Belichick at North Carolina is going to be an abject failure, disaster, every negative adjective you can think of. Georgia Tech win total odds released today at 7.5, along with the rest of the ACC. Maybe we'll look at that tonight. Before we get into that, I'll tell you my experience. I've never sat, I've been in a casino before. I've never sat at a card table before. You know how I feel about gambling. I'm not a big fan of gambling. It's not really fun to me. And even after playing, I don't have any sort of desire to go back to that. One thing, because I had an automatic shuffler. So from my standpoint as a paranoid individual, I can't even trust, like, what cards are in there. Did you take a king out, which would give you a major advantage? How would I ever know it? It shuffled every time. I sat down. Uncle Lou is kind of trying to tell me here's how the process goes. If you can imagine that at the blackjack table late at night. And there's a square, right, that your chips go into, or that your bet goes into. I just thought that's where your chips go. So I had, $50 worth of chips all in to the square. So I didn't know that I was betting everything that I had bought in chips. And I'm trying to remember how the hand went, but I got dealt eights. I got dealt eights, which you split on. So I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, you split the eights. So I grabbed the cards, move them to split them. Didn't know that you couldn't touch the cards, right? So I'm a complete disaster at this point, betting every amount of money I have, being admonished right off the bat. Well, I don't have enough money to split them, right? You got to match that bet on the other card. So Lou just throws down, helps me out. Hey, here, whatever, I got it. And by some miracle, I was able to make money on that and continue playing. I left up, but it was an experience, and I have no desire to do it further. So let's get into what's going on. So while I was on the cruise, I did pay for internet, so I was able to see what was going on as far as news. And I know, I guess there's a lot of Tech fans that are upset that the opening game with Colorado was moved from Saturday to Friday. So that would be, I've got ESPN pulled up right here. I don't know, Friday, August 29th. So instead of August 30th, you're playing the 29th. I get that if you bought tickets in a hotel room and everything, you might be a little miffed. But this is a win for Georgia Tech, right? Let me read out the games that are being played on Saturday that you'd have to compete with, by the way, as far as viewership. Because now in the ACC, you get paid out based on your viewership. That's part of the branding thing that the ACC has agreed to. Rolling average based on the last 5 years. A big part of us being in the position we are was opening up with a big game against Florida State where we're the only game on. Let me read off the Saturday games. Alabama, Florida State. That's going to be a very watched game. There's going to be a ton of people, if nothing else, that are just troll watching and hate watching Florida State this year. Baylor at Auburn, not a great game. Florida, Long Island State. Georgia, Marshall. Clemson, LSU. Another big game you'd be competing with. So Clemson, LSU, that's a massive game. Let's see another big game. Tennessee, Syracuse will probably be a fairly watched game, especially with the season that Syracuse had last year. Texas, Ohio State opens up week 1. Is there any other bangers on here? Utah, UCLA. What else we got? What else we got that's a big game? Is that all of them? There's a ton of games played in that slot. I don't think so. Sunday, South Carolina, Virginia Tech. You wouldn't have to compete with them, but just other big week 1 games. South Carolina, Virginia Tech. That's going to be at Mercedes-Benz. And then Miami will host Notre Dame, 7:30 that Sunday night. Then you have a Monday game, TCU, North Carolina. That's going to be massively watched just because of the whole Bill Belichick thing. So let's just read off the big games that are going to be played that Saturday. Let me scroll up. Got to keep scrolling. I mean, Utah, UCLA is not necessarily a massive game, but that's 2 power programs. All right, so you got Ohio State, Texas, Tennessee, Syracuse, LSU, Clemson, like Auburn, Baylor, Alabama, Florida State. So now, instead of competing with all of those games, you're competing with Kennesaw, Wake Forest, Wagner, Kansas, App State, Charlotte, and then it's rare that I see a team that I've never even heard of before, Tarleton State and Army. That's who Georgia Tech, Clemson are competing with. So this is huge. And it's a night game. It's going to be a primetime slot game. Again, Georgia Tech a 3.5 favorite in that game. Over under 56.5. So that's the point I'm making, Mindfish. Labor Day weekend is stacked for college football, and I'm happy we can watch all the other games on Saturday. Now, I'm happy that it's going to give us ratings because now that matters, right? Now that matters. Get the stress out of the way early. There you go. Then you can watch the Saturday games in peace. All right. So I've got an article from the AJC up. I did see this, and I know that there's been a ton of press conferences that I haven't been able to watch yet, obviously just because I haven't had time. Georgia Tech's defensive coordinator wants to lead the nation in toughness. Now, look, Tyler Santucci did a fantastic job, especially taking our run defense from 129th to 29th, 27th, something like that. Odd, not necessarily an odd situation, but part of the phenomenon where you have college coaches making the leap to the NFL just because it's an easier job. Easier job, less of a commitment, more time you have to yourself. But it says Brent Key acknowledges he didn't previously know Blake Gideon personally. So when did this come out? March 8th. So this article was written March 8th. But the former Texas safety and Texas assistant coach was someone who Key recognized a long time ago as a coach to keep an eye on. So when former assistant coach Tyler Santucci left Georgia Tech in February to coach the Baltimore Ravens linebackers, Key suddenly had an open for deep. Yeah, we know that. We know that, AJC. Tell me something I don't know. I'm having a ton of fun, Gideon said Saturday, and I think a lot of that is due to the guys that I work with on the defensive staff, the head coach that I work for, and the players that are out there making it come to life. I'm having a blast. I feel prepared for this position. I've worked for some incredible coaches in my career and have shown what to do and warned me what to stay away from. What to stay away from might be, just as important as what you need to do. A lot of mistakes you can make as a coach. Where was I? What to avoid and how to progress things the right way, both from a leadership standpoint with the staff as well as the players. Gideon, who's 35, which is important to me. Look, this is a young man's game now. We all know that. That's one of my major criticisms with Bill Belichick. I think Tyler Santucci was about the same age. One of the major criticisms here is he's never called plays. So there's always a question mark when you have a coordinator that hasn't called plays. I do think there's a learning curve with that. As he's talking about, fortunately, he's worked for the best defensive staff in the SEC, the best pass defense in the country. I'm pretty sure with completions, with just raw passing yardage, the guy had an absolutely dominant defensive back end, right? Tech struggled a lot of times last year at safety and at cornerback, right? Now, does Tech have the talent on defense that Texas did? No, but the guy clearly knows how to develop players, right? And that's what we need. Also, the guy clearly can recruit, which is a major plus, especially for us right now, coming off the heels of one of the best classes we've had. So Gideon is 3 practices into his tenure, inheriting a Tech defense that led the ACC in the fewest first downs allowed, 3rd ranked in 3rd down defense, 4th in total defense, and 6th in both rushing and pass defense. So I guess I was wrong with that. The 2024 Yellow Jackets made a marked turnaround under Santucci, and now Gideon is charged with keeping the train of solid defensive play rolling. So Gideon says, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we're good at. Gideon said of his early evaluations of what he's working with, these guys were really good at some things last year. I'm not big on changing things that work just to fit what to call it or what I want to do. Whatever dream I had whenever I got this coordinator opportunity. That's important too, right? I think when you talk about mistakes that coordinators make. You have your system in mind and this beautiful plan for how this should work. But if you don't have the pieces to run that defense, it's never going to work. Any coordinator worth his salt is going to form his defense around the players, right? You're going to put your best players on the field in the best position to make big plays. That's what good coordinators do. Let me go back through the chat there. I guess we got C-Dog in here. Hey, everybody. What's going on, C-Dog? I tell you what, I don't know what you got going on. Obviously, we just got back. If you want to come on here, let me know. I'll open up the StreamYard for you. If it isn't the Karaoke King, that's right. Keeping the 2025 recruits, especially the DBs, is half the recruiting battle. Yeah, and look, we've got some monster defensive back recruits coming in. Dalen Pinson, Tay Harris. Maybe I'm wrong. I think Tay Harris is going to be a guy that's able to start day one for Tech. He's that good. We're throwing a lot at them right now to get different things on tape and to figure out what's best, what fits our personal best. I know that's going to be, I know that's the big looming question of what are you going to lean into schematically? I think they ran a 4-2, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not sure. It's either 4-2. It's one of the nickels. 4-2, 4-3, whatever. Honestly, I can't answer that entirely right now. I'll have a better idea toward the end of spring. The types of players that we have from the techniques up front we want to play to the structure that we want to play in the back seven. And look, in the way that college football is structured right now, you can't even evaluate your team until after spring because you don't know who's going to be on your roster. You'll have people that come in on the first portal window, just come in for spring, transfer out. We had 2 players that I can think of off the top of my head, both on the defensive front, that did that last year. So roster management is much more of a deal now than it's ever been. That's another reason you see this phenomenon of you're having to hire general managers, structure your team more like the NFL, get a sense of what you can afford in players, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't know what money Tech has NIL-wise in the coffers. I'm not even sure how that works anymore with revenue sharing and court cases. I don't know exactly how that works, but whatever money you do have, you got to go out and get some defensive linemen. That I am sure of. In the presser, he said we'll have a 4 up front for sure. Okay, yeah, it's going to be a 4 something. All right. At Texas, his alma mater. At Texas, his alma mater, getting coach the safeties. Yeah, we got all that. Defensive line coach Jess Simpson and defensive ends and outside linebacker coach Kyle Pope, who I believe is in his second season now, is giving key confidence that the front of his defense was in good hands. Corey Peoples also returned for his second season to lead the team's defensive backs. The big thing that I was not going to change was the way we play our front mechanics, Key told the AJC, but I want to simplify it from a linebacker and safety perspective, improve the back end. I wanted a walk-around coordinator. I didn't want him coaching a position. Interesting, too. Rambling on with Zach Jones says, 247 ranked Tay Harris as the best freshman DB to watch out for the spring. A little bit surprising just because we don't usually get recognition on a national level, but I think absolutely makes sense, right? Let me kind of skim back through this article. The biggest lesson, though, playing with toughness, and Gideon said Saturday he wants the Jackets to be the toughest team in the nation. Number one, you talk about it, you practice it every day, you don't pick and choose, he said. If you're a real tough guy and you want to lead the nation in toughness, then it's not something that just happens on Saturday night and fall. It's something that's happening on a random Saturday in March, and then again on Tuesday, and then again on Thursday, and every off-season day. How about the days when we're just going to class? There's a mentality in which we want to do everything, not just from the football side of things. It's just how we want to live our lives. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how that defensive front and, well, the defense shakes up with Santucci. Now, we have question marks on offense as well. We're losing Jordan Williams. We are losing Weston Franklin. The other guy, we're losing 3 guys off that front. We're losing tight ends. Obviously losing probably the most raw talented player on offense in Eric Singleton Jr. We're so deep up front, though. That's more a question of experience, and you have people with experience you can plug in there. You've got one, Ethan McKinney, that's a freshman All-American that you can put at that tackle spot. Wide receiver with bringing in Eric Rivers and, someone that a lot of people aren't talking about, and Dean Patterson that I'm high on. I'm high on him just because I watched him play. Big kid, go up and get the ball. You got both those kids for 1 year. I like the way Buster does his pressers, not much coach speak. Could run the old 4-4-5 D, like some of our SEC brothers that can't count. Yeah, 100%. Yes, you got to watch the Buster. Appreciate the $5 super chat, by the way. You got to watch the Buster, Gideon, King, and Philo pressers. Buster was very blunt in his presser. Can't hold it against them, though. They have to wear their shoes on the field. For sure. We've talked about it as well with, we've got a number 2 running back slot to shore up. Who that'll be, Chad Alexander. I kind of feel like Malachi Hosley, a kid that North Carolina went really hard after, went to Penn, was all Ivy League or whatever Penn is. So it should be interesting. What I'm going to do is I'll open up the StreamYard. If you guys want to call in, we'll talk shop. I will react to the pressers. I will do those for members. So we'll take some calls if you guys want to do that. And after that, we'll open up a members-only stream, and we'll react to the presser. So if you don't know, generally on the presser reactions, I do those for members. If you want to become a member today, there is a link at the right under the title of this video. It's as easy as clicking a button. So let me open up the StreamYard link. And hell, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. How about that? Yeah, we'll talk about whatever you want. I got to go to sleep because I got no sleep this morning because they put me next to the propellers. Yeah, if you guys didn't know, Sea-Dog was all the way on the bottom of the ship, right above the propellers. I'm going to fall with you. Okay. Let me drop the StreamYard link in the chat. If you guys want to call and talk shop with your boy Wreck, we'll do that. I'll pin this at the top of the chat as well. And I believe it's been a while since we taken calls. If you're on the Slob Cruise, you want to call and talk about that and the hell of a time we had over there. You want to talk about Georgia Tech. You want to talk about college football in general. You want to talk about lawnmowers. We'll talk. We'll get it figured out. Whatever you're going through, it ain't that bad. It's going to be okay. I promise you. And if nothing else, WreckTalk loves you. You're always going to have that going for you. Always and forever. So the StreamYard link posted at the top of the chat. Let's go back and look at some of these games. Well, first of all, let's look at Georgia. So Georgia Tech, do they have the over-under win totals for the whole ACC? Let's go look. Over-under win totals. ACC football. 2025. Let's go look. Ohio State's over under win totals 10.5. Notre Dame's is 10.5. So all the teams that have 10.5 over under win totals this coming up year. This is for this coming up year, right? Yep. So Penn State 10.5, Ohio State 10.5, Notre Dame 10.5, Oregon 10.5, Tennessee 9.5. I'd have to look at some of these schedules to really get a better feel for that. Alabama 9.5. First ACC team, Clemson 9.5. So let's go look at Clemson's schedule. Would you put money on Clemson over 9.5 games for 2025? We know one game they play. They open up with LSU. Then they have Troy. So they get LSU at home. They've got Troy on the road at Bobby Dodd. So that might be a tougher game than people realize. But a game that they'll be favored in. I mean, hell, we hadn't beat them since 2015. Syracuse will be, well, we're not going over us. Syracuse, I don't think is going to be much this year. They lose everything that made their team good last year. Kyle McCord's out. Those receivers are gone. They lose things off their defense. So let's say they lose to LSU. Not saying they will. That's one loss that could be on their schedule. At North Carolina, I don't think much of North Carolina. I don't think much of North Carolina coming into this season. I think that's a win at Boston College. SMU, SMU probably has a way tougher schedule this year than they did last year. They've got Syracuse, Stanford, Clemson, Wake, Miami, Boston College, Louisville, Cal. So not a ton tougher. I would probably give them SMU, though. So they get a bye, North Carolina, Boston College, SMU, bye, Duke, Florida State, Louisville, Furman, and then at South Carolina. I would probably take the under on them. LSU, South Carolina, let's say they drop to the SEC, they can only lose one more game on their schedule. They return a lot, though. That would be one I would stay away from. But Clemson's over-under is 9.5. Texas at 9.5. Georgia's at 9.5. Ole Miss is at 8.5. SMU at 8.5. Michigan 8.5. Arizona. Let's go find some ACC teams. Louisville and Miami both over-under 8.5. So Louisville, Miami 8.5. Florida State 7.5. Take the under on that. South Carolina 7.5. North Carolina with a brand new coach. I know it's Bill Belichick. 7.5 over under win total. I would take the under on that. That's just me. Georgia Tech also 7.5. Let me go peek back at Georgia Tech's schedule. Does Georgia Tech win 8 games? Let's set aside Colorado. Garner-Webb, I'm just going to assume for betting purposes, and I'm not a bettor, say you drop to Clemson. Temple, I think you can win. Wake, you can win. I think you can beat Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse. So let's see. 1, 2, 3. I would take the over on Tech. I'm not just saying that because I'm a homer. Again, links in the description if you want to call in to the show. We can talk about it. We can talk through this stuff. I think we win at Colorado, win at Garner-Webb, assume you lose to Clemson. You beat Temple, you beat Wake. There's 4 wins right there. There's half of them you need before you get to the first bye. In other words, I think you go 1-1 between Colorado and Clemson. But then you got Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, NC State. Let's say you lose one of those. That's 3 more. That gets you to 7. And then between Boston College, Pitt, and UGA, you got to find a win there. And you're going to find a win between Boston College, Pitt, and Georgia. Georgia's been over the last 2 years on their over-under win total. Give me Tech over 7.5. Duke at 6.5. North Carolina State at 6.5. Virginia at 5.5. Elliott's going to be on the hot seat for sure. Syracuse at 5.5. So Syracuse wins, 10 games this year? Then in the following season, go to 5.5. What does Syracuse's schedule look like this year? They open up with Tennessee, UConn, Colgate, Clemson, Duke, SMU, Pitt, at Georgia Tech, North Carolina, at Miami, at Notre Dame. Syracuse has a brutal schedule in 2025. All right, I get the 5.5. I might even take the under 5.5. Hughes has the toughest schedule in the ACC. It looks like it. Paul Duffy says wreck. Jeff Collins. He's out of a job right now. I haven't seen anything reported, but I can tell you. Bet under for UGA. What does UGA's schedule look like? They're at 9.5, I believe, on their over-under. So Georgia's over-under is 9.5. Marshall, Austin Peay, Tennessee, Bama, who they can't beat to save their life, Kentucky, at Auburn, Ole Miss, who they got ran out by last year, by Florida, who's a much tougher team, at Mississippi State, who gave them fits last year, Texas, preseason number 2, who they beat twice last year, didn't they? Charlotte, because of course they're terrified of Tech. They got to schedule Charlotte before then, and then cue it up. They'll complain about it for sure. They'll complain about having to play Charlotte the week before at Georgia Tech. I'm with you. Yeah, I think they could go 8-4. I think they go 8-4. I mean, they got to win 10 games. There's certainly 3 losses, reasonable losses you could see on that schedule, especially when you don't know who your quarterback's going to be. I mean, I guess it's going to be Bailey Stockton. Not Bailey Stockton. He plays for Georgia Tech. Gunnar Stockton. But he's unproven. Oh, Zach Jones is in the chat. We'll bring you up. What's going on, man?
Yo, what up?
What up? What do you think? What do you know? What the business is?
Man, all I can tell you right now, bet under Georgia, bet over Georgia Tech.
Free money, huh? Under Georgia, 9.5. Over on Tech, 7.5.
Free money.
Free money.
Hold on. Read me Georgia's schedule again.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Give me 1 second.
It's been a minute since I've looked at it, but when I did look at it last time, I do remember saying under.
So they open up with Marshall in Athens. Then they play Austin Peay. They go on the road to Tennessee. Then they have a bye. They've got Alabama at home, Kentucky at home. They go on the road to Auburn, and you probably couldn't convince a Georgia fan of that. That could be a tricky game for them, though. It has been at times in the past. Even when Auburn's down, on the road at Auburn's not an easy environment.
No.
Then they come back home and play Ole Miss. What do you have them in those first four? So you got Marshall, Austin Peay, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, Auburn, Ole Miss.
See, Georgia fans are that WT7 guy in the chat's gonna be upset when I say this. They very easily could win, or they very easily could lose possibly 3 games there. We know for some reason Kirby Smart can't beat Bama. He
Right.
could lose that one, but it's at home. So and they don't have Jalen Mildew or Milrow, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
That QB room will be questionable versus Gunnar Stockton has a little bit of experience. So I'll give them Alabama. Auburn, like you said, will be a challenging game, and I actually think Auburn's going to be decent next year. They brought in some talent.
They did. Well, Eric Singleton's one of them, isn't he?
Oh yeah, but I think Ole Miss they very easily could lose, but I think they lose to Tennessee.
So
Because if I they have to go to Tennessee, so I like Tennessee for that reason. And then also with the fact you would be putting Gunnar Stockton. That would be his first real road challenge, and Tennessee actually has Nico coming back. I
well,
like Tennessee in that.
Tennessee. Oh, you're talking about Tennessee. Yeah. So Tennessee would be. So you're going Tennessee, Ole Miss, and then what is the third loss you think they could take here at Bama? Even though you're
See,
giving it to
I
Georgia,
think realistically they probably only lose one. But a Georgia fan will tell you, "Oh, we beat all those teams. We beat all those teams." Realistically,
without
y'all could lose.
question.
Right? Y'all will when in reality y'all could lose three of those. I think in reality they'll probably only lose to Tennessee through that stretch, but they very easily could lose to Auburn or Ole Miss.
All right. So you got one loss there. Then they've got a bye after Ole Miss. Florida is this weird neutral site game. They got Florida.
Florida
Get
beats them.
you're saying Florida beats them. Well, Florida gave them fits last year until Lagway got hurt, and then they kind of ran away with it. But Florida's playing much better. Like I get
Yeah.
there's moronic Georgia fans out there. I think you overlook Florida at your peril, though. You don't need to be overlooking Florida at Mississippi State, whatever. Texas. So Texas, they get them in Athens this year. They played them, beat them in Texas last year. That's going
I
to be a
think they
tough
lose to
game.
Texas.
So those are your three. So you've got Tennessee, Florida, Texas, then Charlotte, and obviously they're taking an L this year at
And then
Mercedes-Benz.
I'll be completely honest with you. I mean, Georgia fans are going to sit here and be like, "Oh, well, we're not losing those games." Look, Georgia fans in the chat, WT7. I'm looking at your chats right now. I doubt it would happen, but y'all very easily may only win 7. I mean, imagine you lose. Imagine Georgia Tech upsets you in the bins. Imagine if Texas with Arch comes in and Arch handles his business, which if he lives up to his hype, he very easily could. If Nico lives up to his hype, he'll take care of business at home. Imagine if you drop a game to Ole Miss or Auburn. Um, this ain't the same Georgia team, guys. Sorry to break it to you. This ain't the same Georgia team. Y'all's defense isn't all that. Nobody trusts Gunnar Stockton because even the windmill rumors going around is that they're secretly a QB competition.
OJs. Yeah, no, I mean it's not outside the realm of possibility at all. I think. Look,
I would have them at 8-4 though. I would have them. I think they dropped to Texas, Tennessee. I do think Georgia Tech beats them this year, and then I think they'll drop a game to say like Ole Miss or Florida or something like that. I think they'll. I think Florida's probably going to be the other game they drop.
all right, there you go. Down goes Georgia. And is this the first year they're doing an SEC? Are they doing that this year? This SEC tournament?
Are they really? Are they doing that for real?
I'm not sure. I mean, everything's changing. Let's see. Let me see if I can find something on it. I guess that probably hadn't been agreed on yet. So
I know
guess,
I saw something. I know I saw something about the ACC possibly doing a tournament.
yeah, I think that's becoming a thing that they're all probably going to eventually do, which I hate. But let me ask you this, because we know from last year, we had Lane Kiffin, we had that whole Alabama fan base, South Carolina, SEC teams that get left out of the playoffs that are bitching, whining, complaining for rule changes and to stack the deck so they get however many teams in. Who's going to be the team no one is talking about that's going to be the next Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss, Alabama fan base out of the SEC this year?
Probably. So they were up there last year. But I felt like for some reason everybody always talked about Alabama and Ole Miss, but they never talked about the team that was actually way more deserving than LSU, or excuse me, not LSU. They were way more deserving than Ole Miss or Bama. I think South Carolina will be in that mix again, and they'll probably go 9-3 or 8-4 again if they have a successful season. And they'll still be bitching because that's all the SEC does.
South Carolina. I have a feeling they have a pretty brutal schedule. Let's go look.
I looked at it before. I think it was. I don't. Well,
So
then again,
they've
I was
got
gonna say I don't know how much harder it is, but yeah, I'm not sure.
they've got Virginia Tech,
Okay.
which is not necessarily the easiest game in the world. South Carolina State, whatever. Vandy, who brings back Diego Pavia. Do they bring back that tight end that was so good for them? I'm not sure. Let's assume so. That's not an easy game.
No.
At Missouri, not an
Okay.
easy game either. Kentucky, I don't know what to think about Kentucky. I wouldn't consider that the toughest game on your schedule. Then then it gets brutal, brother. On the road at LSU, Oklahoma, they're down. They might be better this year. Alabama, on the road at Ole Miss, you get another bye. On the road at Texas A&M, Coastal Carolina, and then the perennial best team in the ACC, Clemson, who returns a ton. So
Yeah. Okay. So disregard their schedule is tougher than last year. I would out of what you just said, I would give them 8 wins max, and that's with a big upset over like Oklahoma or LSU. Which I mean, I guess that wouldn't be a big upset, but I mean, with the fact they have to go on the road, I would say that would be an upset. I would say 8 wins max,
so
probably 6 or 7 though.
so their over under win total is 7.5. So let
I
let
would not touch that. I would not touch that.
I mean, if they just lost to all the preseason ranked teams on their schedule, Clemson, A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU.
I'd bet the under if I had to, but I wouldn't touch it because I'll say South Carolina. I feel like a lot of people last year preseasons they had South Carolina around 7 or 8 wins, and then they ended up with 9. So who knows? I mean, South Carolina could overperform again. So I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't touch that one.
I don't really understand that over under for South Carolina. I get that they're much better.
What would you have it at? Like 6.5?
I'd probably have it at 6.5, but that's why I'm not Vegas. They
Yeah.
probably know something that I don't there. I'm just looking at if you lose to every ranked team, that's 5 losses. And you're
Well,
not
I guess since they just won 9, and I think they returned Sellers, and I think they return a decent a bit. So I'm guessing maybe they're assuming maybe they'll like upset a ranked team or two, maybe
sure,
they'll still be good. I
but
don't know.
that's assuming that you beat everyone else. That's assuming you beat Virginia Tech, South Carolina State, Vandy, at Missouri, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and then whatever with Coastal Carolina. But even your like other games are not the easiest games
You know,
either.
you know what? If you don't mind, could you pull up Vandy's schedule? Because I saw yesterday, and it's funny you asked this. I saw yesterday somebody on Twitter said it was a Vandy fan that I followed before the Birmingham Bowl because we were talking shit.
Of
And
course.
he said don't be surprised if Vandy wins 8 or 9 games this year.
Well,
Pull up their schedule if you don't
I've
mind.
got it up. Everyone in the chat, and I want you to. What do you think their over under is? Just without knowing anything else, what do you think Vegas
Without
had
knowing their schedule,
without knowing their schedule?
if I had to guess, probably 6.5. No, 5.5 maybe.
Five and
Six
a
and a half.
half. 5.5. We'll lock in at 6.5. Let's go through their schedule. I'll ask you again.
Okay.
All right. Charleston Southern at Virginia Tech, at South Carolina, Georgia State, Utah State, at Bama. Then they get a bye. So pretty tough there in the beginning. Then you get LSU, Missouri, at Texas, Auburn, bye, Kentucky, at Tennessee. What would you put it at now?
Mm, 6 and 6 at best.
Their over under win total is 4.5.
Yeah, I'd say 6 and 6 at best, and I would say their absolute ceiling is 6 and 6, and that would be assuming they can beat Kentucky, who will be probably a pretty evenly matched team. I would say Vandy might be a little bit better, um, and then that would be assuming they can take care, Virginia Tech, uh, um, what was the other?
They
team you
got
said at the beginning?
Charleston Southern, Virginia Tech, Georgia State, Utah State, Missouri, Auburn, Kentucky. But just listen to their road schedule. This is Vandy's road schedule this year.
Sounds very similar to Syracuse, kind of.
At South Carolina, at Bama, at Texas, at Tennessee. That's their road schedule this
Yeah,
year.
I would say floor. I'll be honest with you. I usually don't say this. I usually don't put this big of a distance, but I would honestly kind of say their floor would be 3-9, ceiling 6-6. I could see anywhere between there.
Hey, that's tough.
'Cause
I
I
mean,
do think Vandy will be a decent team. I think because they do have Pavia returning, and as annoying as Pavia is, and he's a cocky son of a bastard, I do think he's solid. So I could 3-9 to 6-6.
yeah, man, that's a brutal
Okay, so
road schedule.
that Vandy fan on Twitter was just being a little cocky piece of crap.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let me ask you this, and then we'll go on. We'll do the members only stream. We'll react to some pressers before it gets super late. Who's an ACC team that will be surprisingly good this year? So a team that people aren't thinking will be good, and a team that on the opposite end of it that people think will be bad, that will be good. Did I say that right? Good team that will be bad, bad team that will be good. Overperforming and underperforming team.
I don't want to say it, like you said earlier, I don't want to say it to sound like a homer, but I really do believe Georgia Tech is going to win at least 9 games.
Okay.
I think we lose to Clemson. I think we beat Georgia. And then I think you will probably drop a game to say like I think Pitt will be good. I'm just making like up an example right now.
Right.
Say we beat Georgia, we lose to Clemson, right? So that's one loss, and then maybe you throw in a loss to like Pitt, and then maybe another ACC loss because I don't think we'll be quite consistent, but I do think we'll be a good team. I think we'll win at least 9 games. And then I don't think the team I'm about to say I don't think is really expected to be super good. But they're going to get a lot of hype, and I think you already kind of know who I'm talking about. It's going to be North Carolina. I think they win at max 6 games. I think they're going to be pretty fucking average, and then people are going to start to wonder, oh my God, what's going on in Chapel Hill? Why didn't Bill Belichick go 12-0 and win the ACC? Blah 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 blah. Because he's an old man who dates a 23-year-old woman who needs to go to the retirement home. They're not that good.
This man, do you know the movie Titanic?
Yeah.
You know that old lady that threw the heart of the ocean, that big jewel, into the sea?
Yeah.
That, that's how old he is. That's how old he is.
Have you seen his girlfriend?
She's a smoking hot 23-year-old.
Somebody said, what's it called? They made a meme where they showed a picture of him and his girlfriend, and it said, if you're wondering how Bill Belichick will do recruiting at UNC, all he has to do is just go do the in-home visits and just give every recruit a little bit of time with his girlfriend.
Well, Lord knows he's all for bending the rules a little bit. I would say if you want to know everything there is to know about Bill Belichick recruiting, ask people that have played for him, like Gronk, Julian Edelman, and Tom Brady. They were all asked this question: how do you think that Bill will recruit in college? And they laughed hysterically for about a minute straight. So, and
I would be shocked if they win more than 7 games. And the reason I say that to like what you said, like about the team that will be, underperformer. The reason I say that, like, I think what you were looking for in that answer is like a team that'll only win maybe like 3 or 4 games. But here's my thing: I think with how hyped up the media is trying to do Bill Belichick, like we already know by the time they play their game, he's going to get posted on. He's going to get posted probably the same amount that Dion did because everybody knows Bill Belichick.
yes.
And then when he only wins 6 games, that's when it's going to be like, oh my God, what happened? Why you're telling me they're playing in the Gasparilla Bowl? You're telling me they're playing in the Birmingham Bowl? Come on, man. What happened to Bill Belichick? He was never good to begin with, guys. Like, why were y'all hyping him up in the first place?
No, I think that's a good answer. He's definitely going to get a lot of hype. I mean, North Carolina fans, I'll tell you what is sad. They're not really excited about Bill Belichick for winning games. They're excited about Bill Belichick for what it might mean in conference realignment. That
That,
is the
and I
truth.
also think just pure money.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely ponied up a good deal of money. But I'm gonna hop off here, and we'll do a members only stream. We'll react to some pressers. What do you think?
Yes, sir.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you having on. That's Zach Jones, everybody. We'll go through the chat here and see what you guys are saying. Partisan Ranger says, my Knowles may only beat Kent State next year. Well, cheer up, man. You might beat more than Kent State. You could double your win total and win 4 games. That would be 100% improvement. It's looking up. It's looking up. Tom Brady won all those rings. I think that's a fact after you saw the year after Brady left, what happened, right? And then what continued to happen with Bill Belichick, right? So, guys, I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you listening to me talk about the Slob Cruise. Had a ton of fun, represented for the A. Got the spring game coming up next month. Now, I know, you got the ACC tournament for basketball coming up. I don't follow basketball. It ain't my thing. I'm a football guy. Bang! We're talking about football. All right? But I appreciate you guys coming in tonight. Y'all have a great Monday night. And I'll talk to you guys later. And if nothing else, you always know WreckTalk loves you. Y'all have a good one.